And they don't see why a union of workers should be able to stop production in a facility where they contribute almost or even more than capital to see that it functions. They don't get why workers should.
They are the next Dangote in waiting.
No, in fact, what should stop work in Dangote refinery as far as these guys are concerned is that Dangote doesn't have enough money to buy the feedstock required to produce.
That's the only thing. No?
Yes. They don't see that Dangote not paying workers a fair wage should be able to
enough.
Why should workers halt production? Who are they in the grand scheme of production?
We're discussing current affairs issues because we've been off the seat for a while. You might want to call it a summer break or a rainy season break, if you're more post-colonially inclined. But whatever you want to call it, also a paternity leave break for one of our dear hosts who's just had a kid. And because of course we need to humanize men who also need paternity leave. but
the clan is growing.
Yeah. So we should put the applause sound effect because of course with a new kid means a new listener. By fire, by force. Yeah. But yes, whatever you want to call it, we've been gone for a while. So it'd be good to, in this first reunion episode, reflect briefly on the things that have been going on in the recent past in Nigeria and I guess beyond that warrant our assessment and analysis as your resident scam analysts. So what do we think about the developments recently? I mean, what has caught your eye as having been most significant events of the past couple of weeks? I mean, of course, there's a lot happening, and the news cycle of these past years makes one dizzy, I suppose, with all the events. But some of it is absolute noise, and some of it is actually significant. So I guess the question is, what struck you as significant in the past couple of weeks and months?
I think we have a recurring theme now. It's just tribalism across board. That's recurrent. It's not even something that's striking me new or anything like that, but this is a recurring backdrop of the Nigerian social media space. And it is going to dimensions where it is starting to turn into something more material on ground, and maybe it's up onto a dangerous level. That's why I put it. So that's like a normal backdrop.
Right.
Then layered on top of it is other things that happen, then get, seen through that spectrum or interpreted through that spectrum. So yeah, any small thing that people do is just now is seen through that lens, which makes interaction on social media messy, and you can't even get any form of solid conversation again without being maybe seen as someone that is trying to play an ethnic game and shit like that. So it's just a mess. That one by the side. But like in current, maybe per past days, we've had like the fire event happen in Lagos, which from what I gathered was it happened at a financial institution or something, or a building that had like banks in it. I might be wrong, but people lost their lives there, and it was just sad. Yeah. And it highlights that a building that you make money from or that moves capital, basic things like fire, safety, and health and safety, all those things were not essentially in place, which is one contradiction of the capitalistic system if we're going to look at it, because so much money will have been made in that place, but the place where you make that much money is not safe for people. So that's one thing that I saw online. That
it's kind of been the 10 plagues in Lagos, actually, hasn't it? Because
flooding just 2 days ago.
Yeah, what's remaining is locusts now. Yeah.
Which, if you look, some kind of places, but if you know they get infestation of like rodents or this thing. So
not sharks or fishes.
Yeah, I mean rodents, and then there's also, of course, now joblessness with mass layoffs in the same Lagos, in the Dangote, at the Dangote refinery, our refinery, as some people say.
The national assets. That's I'm hearing. I'm hearing that. That's the new one.
I'm sure Mike was going to bring up anyway. But can we dwell briefly on this tribalism thing before coming back to the crises in Lagos of various sorts? Because I mean, I've not followed as closely. I mean, I've been burping and soothing for a lot of the hours of my day, so I'm not paying attention to the goings and comings as much. So what is there? Has there been a new round of events or something that have sparked off inter-ethnic squabbling, or is it just that the regular, the underlying hum, the background hum of identity politics is just building up on its own, based on its own internal logic? Because often there are triggers, right? So I guess the question, have there been recent triggers that I've missed?
I think it's the former. It's just much louder.
Right.
Because, identity politics has been part of Nigerian politics ever since inception. So, but it's now so much in your face. And as the crisis of this government is deepening, the only vent for people now is that line. There's no systemic analysis whereby you see these people as a continuum that, okay, this guy said to stay for that, this guy said to stay for this guy, and you don't see them as a big machinery out to just mess your life up. Or you see them as separate entities. Oh, this guy, because this guy is from here, that's why this one was better. This one, no, it's just a system that is melting down, and everyone played their part, regardless of where they came from, to get you to where you are. So the next guy is going to come, if he's from another part of town or from another part of the country, you're going to start blaming those people again, because the system is melting down. It's going to get more acute and even worse. So why not just step back and look at it as a system and see that every one of these guys are part players or are players in this, system? But that lack of analysis is what's causing where the vent is now, is for people to then recede back to, identity politics. And, the deeper the crisis is proportional to itself. So the deeper the crisis is, the more people look towards, directions like that. So it's so much now, because now if you look at how deep it is and how preponderant this thing is online, you can tell that it's really hard out there. So I'm not looking at that as a factor isolated in it of itself, but it is a testament to how hard things are, and people are just, voicing out in the way that they can for now. Right. That's how I see it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I guess there are multiple triggers, right? What you said initially, which rings true to me, is that, when the pitch of that conversation gets so loud, almost any event then gets reinterpreted in the frame of, is it us versus them, or, yeah, right. Like how, what does this say about us versus what does it say about them? But yeah, I mean, I still wonder if there's if there are actors or specific events that are stoking the flames. Do you know what I mean? That I've perhaps missed. I don't know. I mean, and of course, the one that tends to come to mind is the electoral calendar or the electoral calculus. Because of the actors that seem to play the most active role, or the most agentic role in stoking ethnic division, ethnic identity politics, it would be the politicians, and the key moments will be ahead of the primaries, or in anticipation of how primaries will stack up or ahead of the general election. So, but we're still some ways out of those two things. So, yeah, I mean, what do you think about the influence of the ever looming electoral cycle on this ethnic discourse at the moment? Is that can you discern a pattern that maps onto like the upcoming electoral contest, or is it not yet clear enough? Is it not yet straightforward enough to sort of characterize it in those terms? Maggie, what do you think? I mean, is there in other words, is there a political or electoral component to the inter-ethnic debate at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what's at the heart of it.
Right.
I mean,
okay, the heart, you would even say, yeah.
Oh, that's what's at the heart of it. And, I mean, I hear you say that it's maybe a couple of years away, the actual event, or that even the lead up is still maybe like a year, ahead.
Right.
But the truth is that the politics for 2027, Abby?
Yeah.
Started the day that the results for the last elections were announced. So,
yeah, fair enough.
I think maybe there was like a 48-hour where the ruling party today offered, a hand of fellowship, and then what has turned out to be the opposition, rejected it outright with some tears and some beef, and what's happened ever since then is, realignment. Some have been slow to happen. Some are already just gathering pace. So it depends on what's happening on that front. That's what really forms the trigger. So there are two ways to look at, or interpret what's happening on social media. There's the chance that it might get really ugly as we get nearer to the dates. There's also the possibility that some of what's happening has become, there's a bit of state backing behind some of this. What informs what you hear online.
Right. Isn't there like state-sponsored ethnic champions online?
Yeah. I mean, you can't
crowd.
Yeah. You can't rule that out at all. So that's one way to think about it. The other way to think about it is that for donkey years, ethnic posturing, or people who seem to be speaking for their ethnic groups, have been the loudest on the block. And society has always found a way to reward them. So with the flowering of a new generation, who is, because I mean, there's a sense in which you can say that the Atikus are also out. The Obasanjos have cleared, the Buharis are out. The Atikus are also, their way out. So there's the Wikis and the Bajabiamilas and the NSAs of this world, Ribadus, who are stepping up, and there's also that generation just behind them who are also jostling for spots in this new.
So the sort of the boomers versus Gen X.
Yeah, so I mean, so people are jostling. So one way to do that is to make your voice heard, and then to make your voice heard, you have to pander towards ethnic, sentiments and analysis of political events. So I think so there's also the tendency for you to see that the most stupid things get amplified, and then it's also about who can say the most foolish things. There's this guy who keeps popping up on my radar who is another one, Saki was-papping asshole like this. So yeah, I mean, you just hear all people with all manners of take, and it's almost as if it's almost like who is, and the way this is something you have always said, the way the X algorithm works. So yes, it's I don't want to dwell on it because a couple of weeks ago I'd have said yes that I was bothered, but now I think that it's all a big joke to me, really. But of course, that's not to rule out that down the line we'll experience some really massive bloodletting, especially from the state sanctioned, especially when you get to to election day proper.
Okay, because you guys really see it going in that direction. Like you see, you think the momentum is tense enough that we could see violence on ethnic grounds. Because and if the answer is yes, where? I mean, is this like a Lagos? Because of course in the last election, I think the location where you had the most pronounced, like ethnically coded violence was Lagos. Like the anti-Igbo violence in Lagos in the last election was, I think, probably the most direct expression of ethno-nationalism in the last election. So is this still a Lagos thing? And is it on that dimension that you folks are worried or kind of concerned about that possibility? Or are there other dimensions of it that you're observing as it relates to the discourse, playing out?
Well, the bloodletting I suspect will happen is mostly going to happen in Lagos because it's where the population allows for it in that sense, and it's one of the most it's the most cosmopolitan of all of all the states, and it's not going to happen just because because even the purveyors of this ethnic this bigotry on the ethnic basis aren't even sure who is Igbo. So I mean, if you're not Yoruba, it then passes for you being. So that's one place where I see that it's going to really play out.
Right. Right. And I mean, and that makes some sense to me because I also get the feeling that, like remobilizing a kind of renewism to coin a poor phrase, but what I mean is remobilizing a certain kind of ethno-nationalism in the Southwest is kind of, it might be fairly important for Tinubu if he's to convince people that he's worth supporting despite the poor economic conditions for a lot of people, right? Like it seems to me like that matters more given the difficult economic place a lot of people find themselves, even including people in the Southwest. So the question of belonging is maybe going to, from the political strategy standpoint, a right-wing political strategy standpoint, like it seems like pushing that button is important. More important than usual.
Yes. I mean, even feel out from the crowning of the Olubadan of Ibadan. Yes. I mean, that's early fillers. Those are the jitters that you get, where the Olubadan is asking for Ibadan State, and that's, in fact, I mean, it's a bit of drama as well, but you can see where how people are thinking, and
give us more ethnic. If you can give us material comfort, give us
and Tinubu's response to that would be, rehashing the Emilio script, because he goes back to that. To fire the embers of that fan base, where he points out that he came crying and that they accepted and then they gave him his support. So I mean, it's it's not, we're not looking at 2027 and saying Obi got maybe 500,000 votes in Lagos. No, they don't want Obi to even get 100,000 votes in Lagos if he's on the ballot. That's almost not going to happen. Not on their way. So and then people are not sleeping. The Lagos state government has gone on this politically backed, stupid endeavor of erasing what makes Lagos cosmopolitan, even in terms of street naming. And renaming streets that have any Igbo sounding nature, to it.
Really, I missed that.
Okay.
So even like the streets named after the founding fathers of our great republic.
Yeah. So in fact, to tell you how bad it is, I'm hearing that Ojumba and Badiwe has been renamed. That's to tell you how.
Is that a fact? That's crazy.
No, I'm telling you what's going on. And just yesterday or 2 days ago, there were they send tractors to Aspanda. Aspanda is what's it known by again? Trade fair. To bring down buildings, and this has been going on for some time, and it's hard, even though you don't want to see it via that lens. You want to try and see it through violations of building codes and whatnot. But it's hard not to see that it's become a pattern.
Yeah.
Where even businesses of an ethnic group is being targeted in places where there's a preponderance of those kinds of businesses.
Right.
So that this won't blow over. Anyone who's betting against it, would have a big heart.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, OJ. I mean, are you also feeling similarly that we're moving from orange to red in some senses from perspective of anticipation of these debates becoming violent, basically?
I think in its own little way that started already.
Right.
Because I don't know if Emeka caught this a couple of weeks ago, where there was like some sort of fighting at Lagos in the market, and some guys were fighting, and quickly what they said was one Igbo guy beat one Yoruba guy, and one Yoruba guy killed one Igbo guy, and the thing just went, the whole market just went. Did you catch that?
I think I caught that.
So look at that kind of sentiment. It's already percolating.
Yeah.
And with a country that is this, when you have high level of joblessness, people are poor, it's tense. And things like this are stuff that can inflame or set stuff on fire.
Definitely.
So, and when you have this sort of political misdirection, it is very easy to take things in that on that path, and it's a little violence. And like we said, it's happening in Lagos already, and it's going to be especially with this underperforming and really tough life, underperforming government and really tough life that people are living. There's no way that it won't have an outlet. And if you're already priming the people up that, these are your enemies, this guy from here, that it becomes a problem, because when there's upheaval or when there's, a little bit of wahala like this, those are the people that are going to go and get. You feel like these are the people making or that are a threat to you, and you start being violent towards them. So with this Milocon sentiment and tribal politics like raising its head up again, and it's seeming like this is the last thing that the old school one has to offer us. What I fear most about it is that they've now betrothed that this tribalism fresh to the young generation now.
Right.
That's what they are doing. It is in the process they are handing it over like
No, that was just natural. There's no.
So what I'm saying is, if you had a generation that was productive,
yeah,
at least if it did, but it will be at the very, like, it will recede. It will be something. Okay, maybe
there will be other competing.
Yeah, but if you had a society that was productive with a fly rocket, go space, job, everything day, culture, everything day, nice, that's going to be like the last thing. But when this is now the cornerstone.
Right.
Like when zebras look at themselves, they see their stripes and they know that they are different from leopards. That's the level that you've put us, like animals, that's something that is not in our control. I come up for Umayash for Southwest Nigeria. I be Yoruba. You come up for Umayash for East. You be Igbo. And that's the thing that is the benchmark of our whole material life. What the hell is this?
For all the noise about Lagos, but for all the noise about Lagos, businesses still operate in silos based on, ethnic groupings. There's no interconnectedness in that sense.
At all. It's just like if we've advanced past a certain stage, this tribalistic thing would almost, nobody say it go 100%, because we still get basal things like animals for our brain and all that. But it go on almost die, finish. Because we are attracting we are doing different things. We are all progressing. The future is bright. We know that I know that my fellow man is not the source of my problem. We are all progressing together. But because these guys are so much losers and they've had nothing to offer us for over 60 years, this is how deep the problem has gotten to now. Now, the only vent for everybody is now looking at your fellow man and saying because of where he's from, this is where the problem is. Like, it is dehumanizing.
Yeah.
I don't know if people still are, but it is demonizing and it makes me very angry. Because these people are destroying what we could be, and then they are standing in the way of progress. They are standing in the way of progress. They don't know what they are. They're harming us. They're harming the Nigerian enterprise. That's if they are not done destroying it. So Nigeria no even come day by the time they don't finish. So that's just where I see. And Lagos is going to, like, for what Lagos is and how, it has made some sort of stride amongst when compared to other, how it is, it can come crashing down that way if they keep on playing that stupid game that they are playing. So if they feel like they want to use tribalism to defend whatever it is that instead of solving people's problems, building it up, kind of like making sure that the people that are there, you're getting the best out of them, making it a place where everybody can thrive. But instead of doing that, you're stagnating not even stagnating, you are making them recede into poverty, destroying their lives, and you're just giving them tribalism to eat. Is it food?
There's a part of me that wants to see how, I want to even see it get to a head. I'd like to see how, I want to see, there's not, it's of course, it's not the politically correct thing to say, but there's a part of me who wants to see that what everybody is pushing in with this ethnic, I'd like to see it come to a head, especially in Lagos, and I'd like to see how Lagos shapes up after that.
No, but it's just sorry, I'll let you give your more professorial.
Where?
But what I feel,
I'll try since you said it.
What I feel is the fallout and the casualties or things that will come out of it might be too much for us to, it might be irreparable. Let me put it that way, because I don't want it.
The people that will affect the least are the people stoking it.
Yes, that's my problem. That's my problem.
Because of course, you were talking about the nature of business and how, like, actually a lot of the production that does happen, how you put it, a lot of the business in Lagos is ethnic
silos. Yeah.
But in a way, that's true in population terms, but it might not be true in terms of the scale of capital. In the sense that when you're talking about, like, large scale, like, transnational investment, like the banking sector or the refineries or whatever, oil, the shareholding is very interethnic.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So at the upper end of Nigerian capitalism, people can get along across ethnic groups. The board is always a mix of groups.
But let me shock you, Said, even though you say that, right? He was a British man who, was fortunate to be his student, who first pointed out to me that even in the banking sector in Nigeria, that there are ethnic sentiments that inform how people open banks.
Open accounts.
Open accounts, yes, bank accounts, yes. That there's a sense in which there are people who think that Zenith Bank is an evil bank.
And Wema Bank is a Yoruba bank.
Clearly that you can't say that Bank of the North is not Northern or Jaiz is not Northern.
Sure. There are banks that, most certainly there are businesses, even banking, but in the banking sector that carry a certain cultural identity or, because the CEO or some other person or the founder, it comes from this place or that place, or because of the, I don't doubt that, what I think I'm really saying is that,
Money no tribe.
Okay, that's the point. Otedola and Dangote can figure out how to squash their differences. Their differences wouldn't manifest on the basis of where one prays or the other one prays, because they know that, you know what I'm saying? Or which Oba, blah, blah, blah. What it boils down to it, if they can agree on a mutually satisfying way to exploit the rest of us, that they're perfectly happy to settle all the other differences. You know,
absolutely.
So that's a point. That's a point. If they can agree on how to collectively exploit it, all our listeners, are you listening?
They almost always certainly agree. Okay. So I think the point I'm making is that now me, you and OAG and a few of our listeners know this one. Do you understand?
So, yeah, right. The majority of people.
Who know about shareholding? Nobody know about shareholding.
No, but I think this also manifests in the electoral plane that, like, ultimately the disagreements among the key hegemons, you know, the main people on the ticket, the disagreement is resolvable, and they don't really. I mean, I doubt. I can't read their minds, right? But I doubt that they actually have a fundamental antipathy towards any ethnic group. It's more so that it helps.
They need them. They need them.
Yeah, that
they need them.
Yes, right. So it's just that exactly, it helps to be able to tug on that thread, you know, like as elections approach. So my final question on the subject before we pivot to another plague in Lagos, since we're doing Lagos plague review on this episode. But my final question would be, cui bono? I mean, who stands to benefit? Or really, okay, we know that Tinubu stands to benefit really from stoking ethnic tension. So that's not really the question. I suppose it's how. Is it, if you end up increasing your margin in Lagos and decreasing OB's margin in Lagos, does that win you the election? I mean, does it all boil down to that? You know, is that the calculus? Is, you know, that's at play here, or is there something more national? You know, is there something a bit more ambitious happening in terms of, you know, so maybe it's not, you know, maybe it's not who benefits as much as it's like, how will this actually improve Tinubu's prospects, practically speaking, from their standpoint, right? If we could try to imagine what their ethno-national political strategists are telling them.
They don't have that. I mean, it's sad that it's happening, which is why, you know, the extreme part of how I wish for things to play out is for it to come to a head so that everybody's eye will be clear. Now, how it benefits Tinubu is something I can't answer because I don't even necessarily agree that this benefits him. Now, if they sat down and that this was strategy for them, it's also beginning to backfire, okay? Because more than any other president in the history of the Fourth Republic, Tinubu is easily said to be the most nepotistic, you know, even in terms of his appointment. So if the strategy was to get, you know, on or to rally, you know, your base against one ethnic group, and in this case, the Igbos, it's beginning to backfire because the Northerners are not even seeing you as credible, okay? And increasingly, you're losing, you know, some of the support base, you know, that you have up to the point where you are now visiting Kaduna maybe on a 2-weekly basis to pay homage to the late Buhari in a bid to be seen as being with the North. You know, so I'm not even sure that it is working out in their favor. So that's why it's a difficult outcome to predict in terms of who it will benefit. You know, but what I can say is that if there was a strategy, I think that strategy, and I think you mentioned it, you know, goes beyond even Lagos. It's a strategy that has the entire Southwest in mind, and I think that it's a strategy that probably was, you know, fashioned more to get voters out on election day. You know, with the thinking that the more the turnout, the more they would vote, you know, based on those ethnic sentiments. But I'm not even sure because it will be a great disservice to the Southwesterners to say that all of them are on the Tinubu bandwagon, because I know a whole lot of people, Southwesterners, wouldn't give one good. So I mean, so as a strategy, I think it's a weak one.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where I'd leave it. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. No,
I think they're trying to appeal to the less aware people in the Southwest. Because now, if you look at, and this is not a shade at anybody, we get people who know they are aware for everywhere, but like to the lower class people that interpret their politics or that might interpret their politics from this tribal basis that so this so and so people want to take this, it's now Yoruba turn. That is, in Nigerian history, if we continue with this rubbish of ethnic politics and all that, that Emilokon speech that he had at Ogun State, that thing that he did in Ogun State, is one of the most classic speeches that someone from using ethnic politics will ever give, because that thing is instructive, because you're appealing to a mass of people that if you listen to his speech, he kind of made reference to especially northern politics. And this thing, I'll miss a lot of things if I want to say for English. But for Yoruba, if you listen to Tinubu and his body language and what he was insinuating in the start, this is the Yoruba people's turn. And this is, if you look at this Yoruba self, where would they look at? It is my own turn because I'm the most senior. He kind of grouped the whole Southwest as that, it is now me in charge. Like Abiola, all these things, they don't pass now. If we lose this chance, it means that Yoruba people collectively. He's speaking as if he's doing it on behalf of everybody. Which things like that, they really catch the ears, hearts, and minds of maybe lower class people that have seen that, maybe Abiola was martyred or something like that. So I think to a very large extent, this Southwestern stuff that Emeka mentioned, I think his strategy is to capture Southwesterners, seeing what happened in Lagos State election and knowing that there's a high probability that Lagos is somewhat a contested terrain and they don't know. So what better way than to deepen your base in this? It's a postulate
I get you. I mean, and I also really buy. Sorry, I mean, just to jump in there, it strikes me that the question of turnout is quite important. That's perhaps why Lagos, in particular, is why they're really stepping on the gas in Lagos, because it's like the turnout was low.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess they're like, okay, let's try to turn out the fascists. I mean, to borrow a phrase, I know that it's not a historically accurate phrase or whatever. So maybe I'll discard it and say, let's try to turn out the ethno-nationalists as much as possible, which means that, they might not represent the ethno-nationalists. They might not be the majority, actually, because of course the vast majority doesn't vote. And of course, if we were to do a census in Lagos, who even knows what the ethnic profile of Lagos is, or the ideological profile? At the end, those ethno-nationalists might be a minority, but they're probably a significant enough minority that even within the Yoruba populace or whatever, that mobilizing them and getting them to actually turn out might help, in the grand scheme of when it comes down to the counting. So it strikes me that turnout point is perhaps is one of the keys. In addition to what you were saying, what you then added, OAG, about some of these class dimensions. So I know you wanted to come in, America.
Yeah, I was going to just prod OAG to go and listen to his speech or his response to the Olubadan of Ibadan yesterday, and then maybe try and report back to us and see what sense he gets after listening to that. As well as, I mean, this is, I know that he doesn't need any prodding for this. I just need to point you. So there's this street level musician who's become prominent within the Ibadan scene. His name is Tai Currency. So there's a lot of bickering about, the choice of the songs that he decided. So I want you to hear from you and get to the meat of what that is about, as well. The choice of what songs he sang. In fact, on the internet, I think there are people who were even saying that it should have been, is it Said Oshupa?
Oshupa, I heard, yeah.
You know, that he
It really should have been Said, of course. Why not give Said that contract? Yeah, crazy man.
I think what's his name? What's his name? Thai Currency is a very controversial Fuji artist from Ibadan.
He likes it.
Yeah, and maybe he was sort of throwing shade at the people. What's his name? I think Ladoja had a problem with this other guy, this Kingmaker, in Adedibu, yeah. So I think he was still throwing shade. He was still throwing shade at Adedibu's political. So like people are like, "Come, this thing is over. Stop creating an air of animosity and wala here. We are here to sing for the coronation of King. Which one come say they throw jab at again? This guy don't become waiting up for again." So people didn't want that, for the new king to enter on that kind of, note. I think that's what I might be wrong, but that's what I felt. They're like, Said is well-rounded and will give you much more, the stuff with content.
I couldn't have said it better.
So that's what I...
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll continue to watch the Lagos situation develop.
Plague one.
Hopefully, of course, I know Emeka, being a humanist underneath the cynicism, actually doesn't want to see violence. So, hopefully, that Emeka smiles at the end of the day, and not the one who is rightfully feeling quite cynical about the situation. So from the ethnic thing, and I suppose one other thing to say about the ethnic thing is that, as Emeka was also saying, there's a possibility that it might backfire because, there are also people who are sick of it, of tribalism, right? And who actually want to get on with the productive Nigeria that OAG desires, So is there a possibility that those people might also stand up and push back against this? Unfortunately, I'm not ready to hold my breath, waiting for but I am willing to hope, that revolutionary emotion, as someone once said. From the topic of ethnic politics, I suppose there's no appropriate segue, but maybe it's worth zooming out to consider Lagos from an infrastructural perspective in general, in light of the earth, wind, and fire.
And water.
Yes, and water that Lagos seems perpetually unable to deal with. So we were led to believe that Lagos had been transformed by Tinubu and his ilk. They built Lagos. So why is it that we're constantly facing one plague or the next in Lagos? I mean, what did they build? If we were to actually come to grips with the fundamental question here, like, for the people who say that Tinubu has built Lagos, what are they actually talking about? Because I'm starting to not even be able to know anymore. Like what I know. So what was built? Because look, we all lived in Lagos before. We met there. So now some people will say that, but you should have seen it before that period. I wasn't there before that period. So actually, I'm open to having that conversation. What was it that then shifted in that intervening? Is it insecurity, or is it that there's now some kind of, there's more business now? So yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of like, anytime you hear about infrastructural changes, it's going to be one like project that was started in the 70s that has been completed now at an astronomically inflated rate, or it's going to be a crisis. You won't really hear about any development that just makes sense. So what was built?
There's no infrastructure. Which infrastructure did Tinubu build? Waiting him build for Lagos? Nothing. It's a narrative. And it's a narrative that people are allowed to fester, such that the narrative now has become, so big that it's difficult to put down.
Right.
And it's a narrative that started building around, the Obasanjo Tinubu rivalry. It gained more prominence as Obasanjo, in his typical style, decided to withhold, local government.
Right.
And then, the sort of improvisation that led to Lagos beginning to, that whole idea of Lagos beginning to end IGR actually started that. But it was a child of necessity.
Right.
And so this is the build that they talk about.
Right. So it's that
Lagos,
it's the IGR.
Yeah, the IGR, and the fact that because of the IGR, Lagos is also able to attract significant investments in terms of maybe not even necessarily FDIs, but some sort of, you get Lagos. But Lagos also is able to attract these things because of the viability of the place, the economic, and this economic viability then precedes Tinubu.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Tinubu did not locate the capital in a port city, a former capital, in like the biggest population country in Africa. That was not his decision or choice. And then, even when you talk about yes, it's clear that FDR increased. They started collecting more money from people under Tinubu. But to what end? Is it true that to what extent has there really been a significant increase in investment that can be separated from the economic growth of the 2000s? Do you know what I mean?
No, because they'll tell you. And why I know this is that I engaged somebody on this same conversation not too long ago. And basically what I heard the person saying, it was Tinubu who carved out the free Lekki Free Trade Zone and all that nonsense, along that corridor.
Okay, right.
Which has also meant that so Tinubu also attracted Dangote refinery, because if that didn't happen, Dangote refinery wouldn't come in, right? There are oil marketing companies like Pinnacle as well, who also have legacy investments along that corridor. So this narrative starts to build up from the Fourth Republic as a result of the tiff between Tinubu himself and what's his name? Obasanjo. And as the fact that, prior to that, I think in the late 80s or in the mid 80s somewhere, or late 80s, was it late 80s, early 90s, you then moved the capital from Lagos. So, those who want to go a bit further back want to start this narrative from somewhere around when the capital of Nigeria was relocated from Lagos to Abuja, and the fact that Lagos then seemed to do better off, after this relocation happened. So that's, that being the capital wasn't that Lagos, becoming what it is wasn't a function of, But I keep reminding people that Lagos also became a mega city at about that same time, somewhere in the 90s, you understand? And that, the definitions for mega city or what a city is not Tinubu's, it not being a monopoly of how to define. Now, population, they define these things.
Right.
So, and then they'll tell you that, Oshodi was an eyesore and this. But these are not things that you won't ascribe to Tinubu. The people who gave Oshodi facelift were people who were governors of Lagos State for 10 years or so, or 2 10 years after Tinubu. So you see that it's
but sorry, OG.
They can say that legacy, say that master plan.
But
master plan.
But for crying out loud, at the scale of transformation required, is it the facelift of Oshodi interchange that we should now line up and be clapping for?
They see blue line.
They see
blue line and red line
because of this thing. And the blue line, red line, is it not the Jacondi government is it not the Jacondi government that envisioned the idea of a metro rail in Lagos?
And these people, they will attack you. They will say, what if he didn't do it in call?
Yeah.
What if Tinubu didn't do it in call? That's what they will say. But my own is, if you have a state that you've built for exploitation, it will keep having K-leg here and K-leg there. K-leg here and K-leg there. Because Lagos...
exploitation.
Yeah. So if you, it's just like nothing is ever done with in-depth want for good.
Facelift.
If you look at our universities now, Unilag has a good gate, it has a good, entrance. The gate is fine, but when you enter, we don't get computer for computer lab.
No business
the hostels na bullshit.
Chemistry lab.
Yeah. I'm sure it's no chemical for chemistry lab, no internet for
no water in the toilet to flush.
No water for toilet. But the gate is so fine, and you have all this. It's the same with different universities. It's the same with some hotels that you see there. Somebody made a video of the hotels and what we call 5-star. The floor, water don't they spoil everywhere, and it's just the ambience and the outward look of say, oh, this thing they shiny and they glitzy from outside. But if you go into the core that makes people's lives better and that is supposed to be enduring into carrying them along towards prosperity, so that thing is absent. You just drop a shopping mall amongst where poor people dey. That thing becomes a source of contradiction whereby, and this is something where we say, when looting come dey in quotes now, people will be say they no fit chop, they no fit do anything. Very, very affluent things they around them, they are hungry, they are not carrying them along, no jobs, nothing. What do you expect many people do? So them is.
Then you now turn around and blame those people that it's because they are trying to frustrate your vision.
So for them, it's just to have that appearance as if everything is okay. But in depth, the material human development that gives whatever outward appearance, that gives it staying power is absent. So you put the interchange there. People, they go inside that place, go shit. Public toilet, no.
As they should. As a matter of fact, let me get to Lagos next time.
People, they go use them shit, no be say anything. People go jump inside, go shit, but you just put interchange for like say this thing. Do make public toilet day, proper housing day, all these things day.
It's amazing that you guys are and that we're having this. I mean, last week I was in the local government, for the better part of last week, I was in the local government in Cross River called Boki. Okay?
Yeah.
Bar reclamation and how do you call that? Is it reclamation of land?
Yeah.
Bar reclamation of land and all of that. Lagos is 3,000, maybe 200, thereabout, square kilometers, right? Boki is about 3,000 square kilometers.
Right.
Okay. Now, for the kind of fund that Lagos generates, right? And the population in 3,200 square kilometers.
My brother, we never I'm not even talking about the political class. I'm talking about the so-called intellectual class. We never start to think or anything for this, to the reason anything for this country.
Do you understand? Lagos, for the kind of money we generate, 3,000 square kilometers, and this is what they always shout that is developed. There's no place in the world in Nigeria that is developed.
You go paint Unilag Gate.
We're supposed to be.
Let's now be uploading. Let's line up.
We're supposed to work out for gold. Because in one local government in Cross River State, which is the size of Lagos, it's glaring. And the kind of resource that is in terms of, natural resource that's home to that place. You go see, say, challenge for development day. I don't know that you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
With people with the size of like maybe 250,000 250,000 inhabitants, population size, mostly farmers. You see the challenge there, and how it will be difficult without attracting funds to develop those kinds of places. But the people who can't get the funds, you not even get anything where they commensurate with.
Yeah.
I know everyone go very far. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But that's the town that idiots who live there, who take it as the best thing, because this, how do you explain it? And you can't say it's because people haven't traveled out. Yeah, people who have traveled out who still push this.
No, but the intriguing thing to me, right, is that it's not really, OJ was talking about like working class and like when he was talking about the ethno-nationalism, and I get where he's coming from 100%. But the irony is that the folks who have that kind of commitment to Lagos, defending Lagos, is most often this kind of middle class folks. So the sort of
Yes.
who actually know better or should know better, right? Than to be praising this painting of road, the solar street lights, 7 or 8 solar street lights, or what's that stuff really about, man?
It's because that thing has now found place for them to use in terms of now, if they have political interests, these are usually the mouthpieces of Lagos State government or people that one, and then two, it shows the level how far we've sunk.
Yeah.
Such that when they come paint your interlocking or do one kind of thing for your street light, or they give you grinding machine or more, now to roll out the drums and all that shit, say, at least because government, they're so absent.
Yeah.
Now they've commissioned
because
this.
They won't compare them with Abia, or they won't compare them with Nasarawa.
Right.
Why not compare them to
Dubai or
No. Let's not go far. Even Accra.
No, all one.
Try Dakar. Even no, you don't even go
too
far.
much. I don't know.
Yeah, for ECOWAS. In fact, how about Cotonou?
Maybe ECOWAS.
Let's compare it to Cotonou. Like for value for money.
They've just
ability. Come on,
man. They slowed up and down. They go tell you say because it does 0.5 meters below sea level.
No, they'll roll up your commissioner and then you start giving you making perpetual excuses for why we can't get the drains to get out. Stop making people's lives have been damaged on a regular basis. What are we going to do? Are there emergency services? What are the early warning systems? We don't have all these things in place. And
the guy who be in charge of environment for Lagos, one silly Wahab guy, one idiot. That one, he own stock in trade now to the major in bigotry.
Yeah,
he just said something.
Because it goes back to what AG just said, that the sort of the most hardened bigots are the ones who
have a
CV that they want to market.
Yeah.
So because ultimately what they're competing for is to get a position like this, then those positions, as you've just pointed out, are awarded based on how hard you can promote. I was going to go down a different path, but let me just do the PG version, like how hard you can hype up the man in power and, try to castigate his enemies, and how low you can go to do that, So then
how timely it is, how quickly you can do it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I think, that like, this kind of, for lack of a better term, this sort of middle class folks, who have enough resources to be loading data on their phone nonstop to come online to tell us about the wonders, the eighth wonder of the world in Lagos. They're most likely also to be the most, some of the more bigoted folks around, even compared to working class folks who, for whom it strikes me that when that ethnicity thing emerges, it's kind of like, it can also be a way to express feeling left out, right? Like, suddenly somebody is making money in this town and it's not me. Do you know what I mean? So where's that person? The person is not even from here, quote unquote. So now it's not, I can now target the person, whereas the actual underlying condition producing that symptom is then left out. Anyway. In such circumstances, I suppose we shouldn't be too surprised when half of the city is underwater and elsewhere in the city there are flames springing up in banks, buildings falling down. Nicely painted buildings though falling down. Because
that's it.
Of course, Lagos was transformed.
Yeah. If your aim is to make life better for people, there are much more deeper things, structures that you put in place such that the icing on the cake is how those things now look. Yeah. For people who have already had housing, proper housing, pipe-borne water, good medical attention, fire service, good on day, all these things will come. Then the aesthetics of it all will now be the crowning, But we start from the aesthetics first. So Lekki is fine, but it's flooding. So your house fine, you build skyscraper, but it's crumbling.
These are places that came up or sprung up under the so-called Tinubu who built.
Yes, of course.
It's because it's for exploitation and land speculation and grabbing. That's what I'm saying. That's my point. It's not to make you feel house human beings, but it's to quickly grab as fast as you can, so that you go fit use sharply cash up, make money and all that. Novo rich, sharply get money, sharply get land.
That's what we need to be for next year.
You know? So, but that's the thing. If you really were interested in making lives better, look at urban planning, look at like population, how you go fit properly space people out, planning metro, planning all this. You know, be saying aesthetics. You go down, everything will do okay. You go, you know, a lot of things will have been in place first.
Yes.
For you to now then come and say this is the aesthetics is the first thing. But we jump at aesthetics first. Oh, let's push up right in between where, you know, they're like slummed left and right. What do you expect? It's fundamentally unsafe. Having stuff like that, you know,
you can imagine.
We don't get Lagos surrounded by water.
What are you shouting about?
Mm-hmm. So, for all these things, look at human development.
But
Every day we go.
Even basic urban infrastructure, like, you know, even if you don't become a social democracy, you don't even get water for house. Even your mansion, you don't get water for house.
I don't think that one. And with the flood. Look at the contradiction. Water no day.
A littoral state.
But with the flood.
You can imagine. Lagos actually means lakes in Portuguese.
Yeah.
Where do you even want to start from with that discussion, for crying out loud?
So these are the things that if you really had an elite or a government or people that wanted to develop, you look at the peculiarities of the state. This flooding thing no be new thing. Maybe they no come they give us this thing. And it is because urban development don't get K-leg. You know, they planned with people in mind. And then the thing don't come wobble. So they get perennial destruction of lives and properties, and you keep on having the same thing that you just edit. Yeah. In 2012, where that thing happened, my eyes see Pepe.
Yeah.
Inside this thing.
Right.
Inside Lagos, we they reach this thing the next day. Where we they go? Inside Lagos, you set out the day before. Like, because of flooding, people's cars everywhere. And it's still happening. What are the systems put in place for us to see fundamentally and structurally? Say this thing they there, but before you see, you don't go say this one. Before you're not really doing anything. Bring out the plans, carry people along.
You buy some to reclaim water.
You can imagine, so that you can now sell to quote unquote investors. Basically, it boils down to a really expensive lipstick on a corpse.
That's it.
And why that's even a more apt analogy as far as I'm concerned is because the other annoying thing about Lagos is that Lagos stinks. As in, it smells bad most of the time.
Because the stagnation, the water and lack of proper drainage.
There's no drainage.
Stagnant water go there. So it really would have that smell.
Yeah.
Because so you know the factor people.
You're saying because people don't have water, they don't even take their baths.
No. Leave people aside.
It's not that. It's not people. It's the stagnation of sewage.
It's just like you're living on your live. There's no canals. I mean, there's no real sewer system.
Yeah, there's no sewer system. How can't we don't have a centralized sewage system in a developed this thing like that? Is that not a haven for diseases and all that? And you're saying all these things, and people will just look at human development first. But again, when you set out to exploit, when you set out to grab, when you set out to take things as quickly as you can, that's the type of development in quotes that you get. Because you go worry so much about make sure the thing percolates into people's life and make sure it uplifts people. It is about how quickly you can get this thing. So you go reclaim fast, take the land. And again, let me point back to these middle class people that are defending. This is also an opening for them to participate in the new riches.
Yeah, sure.
And get this new land, new money, new everything that is opening up. So that's why they open their mouth so much online and talk like that. We are watching.
Well, actually, to the subject of exploitation and grabbing that is then framed as investment by middle-class folks, the Dangote refinery is probably a question that we should consider before we close today. Now, look, there's a longer conversation we've had on this in our previous episode, which you can check out. That was published by our syndication partners, Africa as a Country. And there's a longer conversation we could have on this. I mean, Emeka is penning a long-form article that will come out at some point in the next few months, digging into the real political economy of that Dangote refinery. But the most immediate issue at hand that we don't have sufficient time to address, but we should at least touch upon, is the news that the refinery management has just laid off 800 workers, if not more.
In a reorganization effort.
In a quote unquote reorganization. I mean, those are the most violent terms, right? Reorganization effort. So what's really happening there? I mean, Emeka, you're a
Dangote correspondent.
Yeah, so you're the Dangote whisperer. Yeah. So please, can you explain what your friend is up to at this point in time?
I don't know, but I'll try and give a more complicated, albeit short analysis. There are two sides, as always, those for and those against, right? But I think that there are people who usually are for who are beginning to shift to the against thing, especially with this bit of layoff of workers, this last bit. But the Dangote issue has been a recurring one for about a year. So I'd like to put it on record that Dangote has fought everybody. From NNPC to NUPRC, which is the regulator of the upstream sector, to NMDPRA, which is mid and downstream, regulator for the mid and downstream, to major marketers, to the IOCs, to NUPENG, which is the Association for the Truck Drivers, and now to Pengaston, which is more elite union for
like
oil.
Senior staff, like oil union.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, and then for all sorts of reasons, right? But what's often left out of the conversation is that these fights are not, they're not scattered. There's a pattern to it, and that each time Dangote gets into a fight with these people, that at the heart of it is usually his margins,
right?
Okay, but this is not being often said. So this last bit with Pengaston and Nupeng is as a result, well, especially the Nupeng one, but the result of the rollout of but they are linked anyways, rollout of CNG trucks for direct free delivery of petroleum to filling stations.
Yeah.
Okay. Which has then led workers under the Dangote refinery, Nigerian workers, to want to unionize increasingly. But then Dangote is pushing back against this bid for them to unionize. So the elite guys also go ahead and say, okay, well, we're also unionized, because that's a way for getting, for collective bargaining to get the best in terms of capital from the workforce. But you see, the minute they begin to get what they want in terms of what's due them, salary wise, pay package, entitlements, and all of that, it will then eat into the Dangote margin. So things like this new, we are delivering to you free of charge, can't come up, because Dangote basically is robbing Peter to pay Paul. He wants to have this customer-facing, customer-centric focus, where he gives the public image that he's giving fuel at the cheapest that anybody can get, Whereas the reason why he's able to do that in the kind of market which the downstream one is because he's not playing fair. He's not paying the workers what's due them. So when those in support of Dangote say that there's a sabotage, and Dangote uses the word, especially in one of the last letters, I don't know what they call those things, statements that the company puts out, that there's an orchestrated bid to sabotage the refinery. What they say, what they mean is that, these guys are coming together and wanting to make sure that the refinery doesn't work. But basically what these guys are trying to do is to make sure that you pay the same things we pay our own people.
Right.
And then you eat into your profit margin such that you can't be doing bonanzas or giving the impression that you're doing bonanzas. So I think that's, beyond the surface conversation that's ongoing, that I'm sure that you guys are aware of. This is how I tend to want to complicate, the issues, because yes, the people who say it's a sabotage, it's not a sabotage when people are demanding fair wage.
For crying out loud. So, but this is back to the middle class thing, and maybe we need an episode on what is going on with the middle class, especially in Lagos. It's that crowd of people that will say, if the workers go on strike in the Dangote refinery, that counts as sabotage. How can it count as sabotage to not go to work? Is it not your choice? And then in a country where you're free to associate, there's supposed to be freedom of association. If you and your colleagues want to decide to take an action together, in a company that, by the way, it's your blood, sweat, and tears that allows that place to function. I mean, is it not sabotage when the owner of the company, who, by the way, has already become the richest Black person on earth, cannot pay you what is due and expects you to work to the bone? Like, isn't
but pays the Indians? What's commensurate? Globally, what's competitive? Yeah.
Somebody said the only interaction people have had with unions is like ASU, and all these other people, and they don't really know the background and back history of what ASU or all these unions are. I can't say maybe also NURTW.
Yeah, right.
So when people hear about unions, it's more in
cartel.
It's more like a cartel, and the frame where ruling class don't put them.
Yeah.
So they are more like troublesome people that just have to cause trouble, but the fundamentals of fighting for better wage, collective bargaining, all these things, there's usually missing in the narrative that the middle class people, the governing bodies or the ruling class, what they give out. So it's like, these problematic people, these are looters, they are too problematic, they are too this, they are too, so what has now gone through with time is that they're just a bunch of trouble-causing, selfish people, such that, the idea of collectively fighting for something. And that's also, the thing where they affect our politics, whereby to come together and do something is usually very hard.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that has caused, having that anti-union sentiment. Because now ruling class, they define what's in union. Waiting before us, we don't get really.
I think that's with people who are sensible, who don't have the information, right? The people who have all the information that you and I have, but will be on the side of Dangote simply because they want to be the next Dangote, and they don't see why a union of workers should be able to stop production in a facility where they contribute almost or even more than capital to see that it functions. They don't get why workers should.
They are the next Dangote in waiting.
In fact, what should stop work in Dangote refinery as far as these guys are concerned is that Dangote doesn't have enough money to buy the feedstock required to produce.
That's the only thing.
Yes. They don't see that Dangote not paying workers a fair wage should be able to
enough.
Why should workers halt production? Who are they in the grand scheme of production? So it's not a question of that they don't know. They know because they are also aspiring capitalists who want to own a workforce own a workforce, because that's the word, not even employ a workforce. And they want to be sure that this Dangote thing doesn't set a precedent where when they arrive, some idiots will come together under the guise of a union and say, we'll shut down production.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to them.
Yeah, right. It's a kind of aspirational, which I think is it's a sort of ideological disposition towards backing capital. Yes, it's self-interested. It's like one day it could be me. But it's also a certain, even if it's not me, do you know how hard that guy has worked? He's a hardworking person. He transformed the billions of dollars he inherited into more billions of dollars. Can you imagine? Yeah. So, it's that kind of like...
You go and put down $20 billion now for your own refinery.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you do it if it's easy? That crowd. But I mean, yeah. So that brings us to a situation we find ourselves where he's now fired 800 workers. It appears at least that much. And it's not clear what repercussions he will face. I guess that's the fundamental question here. And perhaps the last question we should seek to address, and it's where to from here? I mean, do you think something will happen as a result of this firing? Do you think the Nigerian workers' movement will respond to this, or the government will respond to this? Or do you think he can get away with this, given sort of cheerleading that he enjoys from various societies.
You can't get away. You can't get away.
Yeah.
It's on path. This not oil we talk about. Not oil sector. It's see the one we do with Nupeng. That's Nupeng when no reach Spengasin if they talk from a class perspective.
Yeah.
He not be now for DSS headquarters they settle up.
Yeah.
So he went back and reneged on what was agreed the first time. They called them back. They're clearer. See, this is a national issue, a national security. So with Pengasin, he's not. No, now they go block everything down. He will lose money. So I think he knows. He's just posturing,
right?
Make it be like. So I mean, I think it's also a bargain.
Okay, it's part of the negotiation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel hopefully that the spirit and the ability for people to organize and see that, having unions is not something where we guys look down on. But again, when unions has been, defined largely by, our elites, what thing we expect as, they are troublesome. They stop production. They are in the way of the next millionaire. And if you were that millionaire, they can stop your production. They can stop that's the general sentiment and idea that people have of unions. And they see them as problematic and troublesome. So nobody likes or wants a union anyway, which is now what everybody that is aspiring to be a big man.
Yeah.
That's what they feel unions are, So a lot needs to change on this ideology, on this ideological frame too, whereby workers' welfare, should be seen as tied to the establishment of unions and the ability to associate freely. We should be able to associate freely where we're working. It's not a slave plantation whereby we can't do anything.
Don't look to the left. Don't look to the right.
Yeah, so there are a lot of things that need to change. And this thing that's now why they call it political economy. It all ties together. Because country will get strong unions too, it gives a sense of purpose. That's now why we feel transit time. That's now why if we feel use transit time to political action. All these things really, which ties into Labour Party, all these things, like, it's woven. Only if we can spend time to build up and take political action, so, yeah.
This Frank Kukori guy, wasn't he the
Yeah, he was Pengasin, huh?
It was Pengasin.
Sorry, he was Nupeng.
Pengasin,
I think Kokori was Nupeng. I think Kokori was Nupeng. Yeah. We should.
Wasn't okay. And one of those two, sir. But I mean,
because Nupeng is the one that's affiliated with NLC, right? And Pengasin is TUC.
And Pengasin is TUC. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, because what people forget, when they say what's within Pengasin or within Peng or within unions don't do this thing. They don't even fit. And this happens, and these are the ironies of some of the things that we're discussing. People who claim to be progressives, even the youth section of the progressives, layman's, don't even know, how. So that's when they tell you, say, Tinubu them fight for democracy. How? Do you understand?
Yeah.
Now the people will build, the ones where they under DSS custody, we head these unions, we fight Abacha to a standstill when the chips were down. Is what people now want to trample on that foot, for people like Dangote who have also beneficiaries of those ruinous regimes, of yesteryear. So I mean, I think it's a country where we don't even get our priorities straight. And I don't want to make an excuse for the age of people who are having this conversation, because I see really knowledgeable old folks even, asking. I don't want to get angry with this, because Dangote is pissing me off as you will already.
So America, the beef between America and Dangote continues. This move by Dangote hasn't done much to build bridges with his old friend America, but we'll continue to try on the podcast to resolve that dispute among friends and
among comrades,
yeah, among fellow nationalists who have their country's interest at heart. Gents, I don't see us resolving anything else. If we failed to resolve the Dangote America issue, then I think we probably should park it here, take a break, and return at a later date to process other issues. So should we leave it there for today?